Bradley, I'd like to get a DM from David says, Bradley, I'd like to get a DM from you of those 5 potential industries. Uh, Lips are sealed receiver. David, just ping me and social or somewhere, Facebook or something like that to remind me, and I'll happy to share it with you. I've got a few industries that are look quite promising. I could share with you. I'm not going to try any others. I'm married to the tree service industry, so I'm not moving. I'm not going outside of that. But I found some really good ones recently. Danny says, "Hey Bradley, our local Fury, or I'm sorry, David. I found some that have a lot of potential. I don't know if they're really good until I get in there, until somebody gets in there and tests with them. But from the data, it looks like there's a lot of potential." Danny says, "Hey Bradley, are Local Fury and Semantic Links alone enough to dominate the 3-pack or maps? What else would you deem essential?" No. Here's the thing, guys. You can throw all the links in the world at a project, but if it's got poor optimization, if the entity isn't established, well established, if the on page is poor, then all the links in the world aren't going to help. Or it's links aren't magic bullets. You have to have sound SEO, for the on page, and everything else should be sound. The entity should be well established. All of those things. Same thing with engagement signals. I think some people think engagement signals are the magic bullet. Some people think links are the magic bullet. Some people think links and engagement signals are the magic bullet. It's not. That it's part of an overall strategy, right? You have to have all of your ducks in a row in order for you to get results. So in other words, don't start building links until your on page is sound. And really, first establish, if it's a local project, Danny, establish the local entity first. You want to try to validate, verify and validate, right? And then try to build some authority to local entity. That's always step number one. That's why in my audits, it's always the first part is entity analysis. Then next is on-page optimization for the self-hosted website. That could be interchanged with on-page optimization for the Google Business Profile, because part of entity establishment, right, is verifying a Google Business Profile. So you could swap the order of on-page analysis for either the money site or for the Google Business Profile. It doesn't really matter. The point that I'm trying to make here is I always, in my audits, there's 4 parts. The first part is entity analysis, because if the entity has problems, all other SEOs efforts are going to be more difficult. If the entity is well established, all other SEO becomes easier. Hopefully you understand that. So that's why I always start with that as number one. Doing entity analysis, researching to determine. And how do you do that? An easy way is just go do a brand search. What happens when you do a brand? You might have to geolocate your browser first. If it's a local project, go in, use like Bright Local Search Checker, or something like that. Valentine or Valentin.app, something like that, where you can set the geolocation of your browser. And then you go in and just do a brand search. Boom. What happens? Does it pop a knowledge panel? If so, that's a good sign that the entity is well established. If it doesn't pop a knowledge panel, that means you need there's work to be done. Another one of the next points in my audit is part of the entity analysis is, out of the top 20 results, how many of them are branded or supporting assets for that brand when you do a brand search? If you don't own the first 2 pages, or at least 80% or greater, so 16 or more of the top 2 pages, the top 20 results, then it means you have some work to do for your local entity, the brand first, right? And there's things that you can do to help that. So anyway, I'm just to kind of get back to what I was saying, what your question was, is that entity analysis is always step number 1, in my opinion. Number 2 is the on-page analysis, both for the money site and for the Google Business Profile, if it's a local project. Having sound structure and also optimization is important. Because again, if your site is poorly optimized or has poor structure, then it's not going to perform well, no matter how many links you throw at it, no matter how many engagement signals you throw at it. So it's not, again, if your question is assuming that the entity is well established and all on-page factors are done properly, is Local Fury and Semantic Links enough to dominate the local 3-pack? Well, yeah, but then that's not really just, is it Local Fury and Semantic Links, right? That's doing all of those things, which again, there's 4 parts, right? There's entity, on page in 2 parts, on page for the Google Business Profile, on page for the self-hosted site. Then there's off page, which includes backlinks and signals, engagement signals. So that's how I look at all 4 parts of, like, when optimizing for a local project, is those are kind of the 4 components. Again, entity analysis, number 1, number 2, which can be 2. So number 2 and 3 are on-page analysis. and optimization. And number four, the part four is always off page, which includes backlinks and engagement signals. So all of those things combined, I think that's what it takes. That's the thing I started to say earlier, is that it's amazing how many times people come in and they submit stuff that really needs a lot of work. And then they want to complain that they're not getting the results. And that's why for Semantic Links, for subscriber clients, I tend to, make sure that I analyze their project. If we happen to notice that they're not moving, the rank reports are not providing or showing the type of movement that we typically see, then my project, or excuse me, my executive assistant, Hazel, she's the one that prepares the monthly report. So she sees that there's a trend or something's not moving, or something is not moving at the speed or that we typically see, then she'll bring it to my attention, and then I will go in and take a look at the on page and the entity, etc., and try to determine, is there something else that can be done? What is the reason that this project is not responding to the links like most projects do? There are projects we typically see the movement that we see. So I usually will go in and analyze, and then I will provide recommendations like, hey, listen, in order to get better results, I recommend you do this or do that. Most of what I see is over optimization right now. Cannibalization was a big problem for a while. I'm not seeing as much cannibalization, but I'm seeing a lot of over optimization still. I'm still seeing keywords and URLs that are both in the domain and in the page slug. Then over optimized keywords stuffing in the SEO titles, the same keywords duplicated in the meta description and the H1s as well. So it's just way over optimization. We don't have to hammer Google over the head with that stuff anymore, guys. The language models understand language better than we do. So we don't need to hammer them over the head anymore. So that's what we used to do, but we don't need to do that anymore. So I just bring that up because it's interesting. I still see a lot of projects that come through, and like I've said this before, guys, same thing with client work. Like, if you promise your client a result for whatever it is that you sell them, and part of the effectiveness of the product or service that you sold them and the result that they're going to receive from using that product or service, if part of that is their responsibility and they don't hold up their end of the bargain, you are still going to be blamed for the lack of their results. And that's the same thing that occurs as a coach teaching SEO methods and strategies, or as a white label provider, and when I provide, link building services, etc. If, I can teach until I'm blue in the face, but if the student does not apply anything that they consumed, as far as the education that they consumed, then again, if they're not getting results, a lot of the times they're still going to blame us. And that happens here at Semantic Mastery all the time. Well, your stuff doesn't work. And then I go audit their property and they didn't do but 25% of the stuff that they were taught, right? Whose fault is that? Is that Semantic Mastery's fault because our methods don't work? Or is that the students or the members' fault for not applying everything because they wanted to take shortcuts or they were lazy or whatever? It's the same thing with white label services, right? If I can have really good links and good customer service, good support, good communication, all of that. But if you've got a property that is optimized poorly and you don't follow the recommendations that I will provide that are going to help you to get better results from the links that I'm going to send, then and your site does not respond to the links because you didn't do the work, whose fault is it? Well, in reality, it's your fault, right? And I'm not talking to you specifically, Danny. It's the proverbial you. But that person's 9 times out of 10, they're going to blame the white label service. It's the link's fault. It's the link's fault that their project isn't moving, not the fact that they have a shit site that isn't optimized properly and they won't listen to recommendations because they know it all, right? So it's the same thing that I'm saying, like when it comes to SEO, like in general, guys, you have to kind of dot all your I's and cross all your T's, or because it's hard to brute force any one component in SEO and still get a result now. I'm not saying it's impossible, guys. Certainly, there is nothing absolute in SEO. Nothing is absolute in SEO. But, it's hard to brute force any one method or component and get of SEO and rank. Now, it's better if you have more of a holistic approach where you're optimizing the entire project and all of its components. And that includes, entity, on page, off page, engagement signals, backlinks, all of that. Hopefully that's clear. Anyway,